All right, hello everybody, and welcome to the UK Skype. Glad to see that you made it, Pierce, and that weather didn't stop you. I'm here with I'm here with Gwen and Peter, and so welcome you all on board. And I'm going to pass the mic to Peter to begin.
Hello, everybody. Me again. Got something I want to discuss really this time, and I'll get Duane's take on it really. Going back to what you were saying some time ago about Wagner, about how he was helped by the real guides to write his music, and I'm wondering really if it extended to more than just the music. What I'm getting at is the fact that unlike any other great opera composer, Wagner wrote all the words to his operas himself, sometimes taking considerable amount of time before he actually got down to writing the music. And the case in point, was two actually I wanted to discuss, but one fairly short one, which only came to me yesterday in fact, is to do with the Ring Cycle, which is a great 15-hour epic telling an old legendary story of basically the beginning and the end of the world in mythological terms, based on all sorts of old legends that he wove together into this wonderful story. It's in 4 parts, and the second part, the Valkyrie, well known for the famous Ride of the Valkyries. There's right at the beginning of the opera. First, I should say that one of the main characters in the Ring Cycle is Wotan, who is a so-called god. You know, we all know what we think of them, but and he is actually better known as Odin. That's the German name Wotan that Wagner uses, I should say. He's Odin, or in this country they used to call him Woden, which is where we got Wednesday from, Woden's Day. Now in the opera we learn that he's spent a certain amount of time on the earth with a human woman, as a result of which there are a pair of twins are born, a boy and a girl, Siegmund and Sieglinde. Now the thing is that they parted very early in life and separated, and it's only when they meet supposedly by chance. It's all to do with Wotan's machinations, in fact. But they're in the opera, and the girl Sieglinde has been abducted as a young girl and forced into a marriage, obviously hated. And in the opera, the husband appears. Hunding is the villain of the piece in this particular opera, and he mentions the fact when he sees the Siegmund for the first time, he says to himself, sort of an aside, excuse me, how like the woman he is, the same snake-like glint in the eyes, which I thought was rather interesting in relation to reptilians and all the rest of it. And this apparently is a direct quote from Wagner from the Volsinger sagas, which this particular element of the story was taken from. It was when it was said that the Volsungs, which are the children of Wotan, he used the name of Velsa when he's on the earth. And the Volsungs are of course his children, and it said in the sagas that the Volsungs were noted for their snake-like eyes. That was point one, which is a very minor point. The main point I really wanted to make was about his last opera, Parsifal, which it seems to me, the thing that brought this to my mind in the first place was the fact that every time I read about this Callum god, I always have an image of the arch villain of Parsifal, that is Klingsor, the black magician. And I started thinking about this one day, and it occurred to me that the whole story of the plot line of Parsifal could be likened to our sort of quest to get back to the all is, or the source, or whatever you want to call it. And just sort of breaking it down very quickly, the main points that made me think this was the fact that at the end of Act 1, in fact, coming in quite well into the opera. If you first of all should say, if you take the Holy Grail as being a symbol of the all is, because the opera is all based on symbols, Christian symbols and Eastern religious symbols and ideas. It's a bit of a hodgepodge really, and people have a lot of difficulty understanding it. But if you cut through the the face value of the rather strange story, you can sort of see a comparison, which is what I'm trying to make now rather badly. And basically, you can say that towards the end of Act 1 of Parsifal, the hero himself leaves the Grail. He's found the Grail. It's in the being in a castle at Montsalvat. This is medieval Spain, and it's being maintained by the Brotherhood of Knights, pure knights. But they have lost one other important artifact, which is the so-called Holy Spear, which was supposed to be a spear that pierced Christ on the cross. And it was stolen by Klingzor, because he was originally one of the guardians of the Grail, but because he couldn't control his lust, he got kicked out. And cutting a long story short, he made off with the spear, and his whole idea now seems to be to try and either get the Holy Grail or destroy it, and therefore the Brotherhood of the Grail. As Parsifal sets out on a journey, so you could say first of all he's like all of us setting off in the first place, leaving the all is, and setting off, and then he goes through very many problems. He goes through a bit of desert, and then eventually he comes across this castle, which is actually Klingzor's castle in the desert. But before he can get to it, he has to fight his way through numerous knights of Klingzor's fallen sort of knights. So they've all been the result of temptation. They've all been sort of lost their sort of pureness, mainly because of Kundry, who is the main woman character in the work, who is an arch temptress, but a very strange character indeed. And they have to fight their way through. He has to fight his way through these knights, and then also he comes to this magic garden. It surrounds the castle, a wonderful garden, and he has to effectively fight his way through the flower maidens, which are trying to tempt him and try to seduce him. And then finally, Kundry herself comes on and basically tries to seduce him and fails at that. And she calls on Klingzor to come and help, and he appears and just throws the spear at Parsifal, who catches it in midair and does a cross in the air with it, and the whole country and the castle and the magic garden all disappear into dust. But then before he leaves the scene, Kundry curses him and says that he'll never find his way back to the Grail. However far he goes and wherever he goes, he'll never find it. And so that's the end of Act 2, basically. But in Act 3, we're confronted with him as an old man. He finally, after many years, as we learn, he has found his way back to the Grail. And it just seems to me that all of this, what I'm waffling on about, could be sort of likened to our sort of journey, especially if you think of Klingzor as like the column god, and that he's defeated or passed by to get on to further levels, and then which is when he Parsifal wandering, trying to find his way back to the Grail, and then he eventually gets to it. And I'm just wondering how much Wagner knew about all this stuff, and if that is what he was saying in some sort of codified form, putting it all into this rather weird story that he made up.
Okay, that's the question. I'm not sure if everybody understood that, because you talked rather fast, young man, Mr. Peter. I understood it. There's many ways to say it. Okay, so it's the same old story renewed. Yeah, I studied all that too. I studied Wagner's operas and all that for many years. When Paul mentioned, he wrote a little book called Eccan Music at the time, and so there's a book, and you can get it on Amazon, and it's called The Esoteric Music of Richard Wagner by Helene Colleen. And I read that book 40 years ago, and it defines the operas. And yes, Wagner had insight. Wagner came here for a reason too. He came to do something like Tesla and many others, and he used the references that were available for the day. Those were the references of the day. And just like Paul, he used the references. That's why he called it the Wheel of Eck, and he, named all the religions of the world and whatever, just used them as references. And at the time, he used the God idea. All right. So, and as time passes, you might say, it's taken over by something else, because these are the cycles in creation that we go through, and we keep going through them until we finally get to that point where we recognize, okay, what's really going on. So yeah, the same idea is there, and things are hinted at. That's all they can be. They're just hinted at, and references are created, stories are created, just like Wagner. He studied the real side, but he didn't really bring that out. He brought it out in a particular way like that. Beethoven and others, they did too. They brought out their parts, but not as much, etc. So it's the same idea, okay, going along, etc. So, the books that I've written are kind of like that, but it's more of the individual's real experience. It's more upfront now. You see, it's not all this symbolism, because when you look at the world, everything is cloaked. You look at the religions of the world; they have these same stories. They, from the Adam and Eve to Jesus, the saviors, and etc. And all the history they've collected and the stories they've created, etc. It's the same idea. And it really breaks down to each individual in creation, and what they're able to recognize. That's the whole idea. It's not chasing some idea. That's the difference. So, what Paul, I just go by Paul because this is the era we're in. And those things like Wagner and whatever, yeah, they had, they had their value and benefit for that time, because that's all people could understand. And so he put them into operas. He created music along with it. Okay, he brought it into the social consciousness in a particular way. He did a particular something, you see. But it all becomes strange again because of how society is. And just like Tesla, as an example, brought something in, and it all became strange. Now what he created became weapons. It has become weapons. And so just like what Paul created, now it's become a weapon, and the controlling and takeover. And Paul never did worshiping and praying to the gods or whatever. There was subtle references there. And these ideas were used to, the God idea and whatever, we used to baby people along. And it's understandable as you get a better view of it. But now we're really past all that, and this is where people can't see, because that's the me idea, and worshiping and praying to a God. Okay, for what? To get things, to have things. This is where life is an isness, and you recognize it, and you step up. Each person does their part. I'm just doing my part. The boys, they're just doing their part. And so they used the master idea for a while. And then, it's like, they told me, they said, we're not that. We're just guides. We just guide people, It's like parents. They're not masters of their children. Sometimes they want to be or seem to be, or they possess them, then they are, then it's master and slave. But realistically, they're just guides. And then, but the children also, this is why I created the homeschool, create all these different avenues to go by, is that the children are the guides too. We all guide each other. We all learn. I see that. I see the pure sincerity of children. And there's so much value there, but for the most part, the adults are off in their own world chasing their la la land. And so it's very interesting. So yeah, And what is looked upon in society, Peter, is these ideas that have come and gone, and this is what we call tradition, don't we? Yes, we do. And it's just old stuff. And again, it's a good reference. You've picked it apart very well. You see it, and that in itself, because of your interests, you're a particular view in life. We're all just a view. We're all viewing life. We're all experiencing it. And with that view, we decide. We are the decider. What is our experience going to be? What do we want it to be? What do we want to recognize? What do we want to see? What do we want to be? You see? So it's all these things out there. Everything refers to the true reality, but you got to figure it out. But then again, it doesn't. There's two sides to it. It does and it doesn't. So right now, this is the focus of the business. This is what I was shown. This is what I recognize. I had to recognize this. You could be shown something. Children are shown something as an example. Adults are shown things, but they don't recognize it. It's right in front of them. They don't see it. Not at all. I've seen so many people come and go, the simplest things. They don't recognize it. So you see how this is working. And yes, all these characters, because through this experience, like the opera or movie or whatever, you see all these characters going through what they go through to get all these objective views to finally figure out yourself with the whole of life, okay? And it's not a matter of just calling it something, the source or all is or the Holy Grail or whatever. Again, people, they stop at the ideas with their literal self, thinking that, oh, this is what it is, and that this is an absolute, this idea, God, oh, God. And nobody knows what God is. All the God followers, they don't know. They really don't. And actually, they're afraid to know. Yeah, they don't know. They don't know who their master is. They don't know who all these things are. They stop at the idea and its recognition. When that recognition comes about, then there becomes a real relationship. That's standing real, but you have to have courage to do that. And this is where the real guides come in. Anybody can do it in any way. We're just, I just see that we're creating the best references here to this reality where everybody else loves to cuddle their ideas. There's a subtle difference. There's a subtle difference between your awareness and your mind. And so, yes, it's been played out in many ways over and over again. And at the same time, it's taken and controlled, just like the sphere of Longinus that pierced each side. There's a book called The Sphere of Destiny. I read that 40 years ago, too. And it's very, very good. And it talks about this sphere. And again, people that chase these things, okay, as a reference, they're looking for like magical powers and stuff like this. This is the power aspect in creation. And this is not understood. And this is what people are experiencing here. They're thinking it's some kind of control over things or whatever, and then you're free. No, you're not free from that. This becomes the difference. I stood in the Rod of Power for a year and a half or so, 2001. The real Rod of Power, yeah. Harold and Darwin, they never had it because they had the idea. But then I stepped out of it because, again, I had to. And then to get ready for this, the new wave is, it's not power. It's the true reality, the isness. There's no power with this. And this is what people can't see. So in reference to that and so many other things, it's a particular accomplishment that you go through. It's like you first have to go through your personal self in creation. You have to go through all of that and all these things, and then recognize a real position and learn to view as the isness life is, the all is views, and get out of that personal self. But who will do that, you see? And so that's with your real awareness, not with your mind chasing an idea or cuddling an idea. The God idea is something that people cuddle to. That's why they worship and pray to it, because it's all about their personal self, and thus reincarnation and karma. it's a choice. And so most people don't want to see past that. You're still there. I see everybody as beings of light. We're not male or female. These are things that are in creation. And most people cling to the bodies, which is fine. The bodies are still there. But to really see it for what it is. See, this is where what I've presented, I didn't want the membership or anything like that. Those are followers. Those are people that worship and pray. I don't have followers. People use this reference. Oh, you have followers, Duane. No, I don't. I don't express that at all. I don't have members or whatever. The whole idea is supporting the all-natural environment that supports us. Getting people to that position, the all-natural environment that I'm specifying is the isness. Life is. It's everything. It's my sneaky way to bring it in. You see, the all. This is what I was shown. At first, I was shown the is, and I recognized that, so I presented that. Then in 07, when I stepped back in, it was the all is. In other words, it's everything. It's not the me thing anymore. It's everyone and everything, you see? It's not the personal self, but, how many people will see that bigger picture, will step up for all, you see? Like the sun shining. It's an allness. It's an isness. And so, yes, these are the things that we have gone through. And really, many times, Peter, what you're looking at is, you're looking at experiences. You were probably there too. You pull things to heart. You were there in another life too. Maybe you knew Wagner or whatever. Or you heard his music, or you were in Germany. It doesn't matter. It was some aspect, and this was part of the lifetimes for you to go through to finally get here and have this opportunity. But you always have the choice. And so this is where people can't understand. See, they use the love idea too. See, the God idea, the love idea, all these things. Yeah, that's all given. It's not about that. It's just that I don't chase these ideas, or I don't put these ideas out in front of what life is. Life comes first. The isness comes first. And then those are choices that people make. And all these people that say to me, well, where is the love, Duane? Well, they're holding up their love ideas, like they're holding up, signs at a demonstration as they're going down the street. We want love. We want love. Well, that's their idea on a sign. What the reality of the essence life is everything. It already is everything. But people want to pick and choose the parts, and then they want to make something out of that part. So then they build temples and all these things, and then they sit and worship and pray these little parts that they have in their mind. This is, we've all gone through this. And, still scratching for real freedom, still begging the gods for freedom, to be free of all this, when it's really you recognizing it. And the best part is that when you recognize who will support you and you support them, well, then it all works for everyone. It's like one big family, you see? Yeah. So this is why I've always supported Rebazar and the boys, because, realistically, they support me. And it's been weeded out to where it just became, you might say, it was me. And no one else would step up on the real side when this next part came. There's a whole room of people, and it was presented that, okay, who will continue on, who will, continue on with what Paul did. I was the only one that stood up. And it was a choice everybody else made. And they're still out there wondering. And even we see individuals here and on the real side, when it's right in their face, they still walk the other way, you see? Because I know it takes time to recognize it. So, Peter, you've recognized these certain things, and see, this is giving you the hints in a particular way. And I understand, because I went through that too. It was fun. I went through that. And yes, all the characters are aspects to, eventually help you recognize. And there's many ways to do it. And then eventually you can recognize those individuals that already recognize the isness and stand real with them. No more foolishness. And then it's an endlessness. Yes. To where you don't need the personal self anymore. You're with all life. realistically. And I don't mean creation. This is all you see from here. But can you see something you cannot see? Because it's invisible. You know, just like when you love a person, you know, you're thinking in the body form. You're thinking, oh, I love that person because, you know, they have a nice body or they're cute or whatever. Oh, I love them. That's not real love. You're really loving the body, which is fine. You know, we love our car. We love, you know, where we live, whatever. Fine, we love the beach. Yeah, but that's not real love. Real love is recognizing the isness and standing real with that, to where creation is still there. It's like a blend. You know, you decide to go back and forth, and this is where eventually the individual becomes one of the true silent ones, where they wholeheartedly stand with the is. They're just a shaft of light, you might say, because their intent is there. And so you decide. These things are all available with yourself. It's your decision to take on the journey to recognize this. So in the meantime, while we're in creation, everything in creation relates to the isness life is. But you in some way recognize it and put it together. You know, just like you're going to bake a cake. All the ingredients are there. You just got to figure them out. You know, so if you're in the Stone Ages and you're a caveman, well, you know, they haven't made flour yet. They haven't made sugar and cinnamon or whatever you're going to put in the cake, or chocolate. All right. So you got to go through the process of figuring out, okay, where do I get this stuff? All right. Let's say you had the awareness to know that that's what you need. Well, so what do you got to do? You got to start growing these things and mill them and whatever, etc. And so this is what we've done for lifetimes. We've gone through all this creativeness, creating things, till we finally start to see what we're creating, and then start to, you might say, wonder in a way and imagine, well, how does this relate, or what else is there, or what? See, you start going off, and then here it is, probably millions of lifetimes later, because each lifetime is a snap of the finger, and we've come into what we've come into now, and this is what we relate to, because this is what's been created. It can be created any way at all. You look at the different cultures of the world as an example. You look at the different planets and the different body types and civilizations everywhere, etc. It doesn't matter. It's how you relate to it. But for the most part, because people cannot see past creation, they create things to look to. That becomes the difference. And instead of it being a reference, it becomes a reality. The new presentation is really something to do while you're taking the time, if you do, to recognize the true isness life is. You see? That's all it is for right now. I'm not going to say that it's something that it's not. But then at the same time, look at what is being presented. Look at the images that Ava and I create. I'm surprised more people don't show up. You know, you look at our images and you look at other things, and you'll see the reality there. The is backing that, where everything else, it can look good, it can be Michelangelo or whatever. It's all dead, because life is not backing it, you see. There's no aliveness there. This is the nowness, because of the intent and everything that is there. You know, and at the time, Wagner had certain experiences. He was shown certain things, like Tesla was. I'm using them as an example, and others. But it still wasn't it. They still didn't see it. They saw things accordingly, okay? They saw things accordingly. And so this becomes the interesting part. So, you know, you might say, test yourself. How far do you want to go? How far do you want to see this? And most people, they just stop at their personal self. Oh, they read the books, they get some knowledge, they study history, they jump from so-called past, religious, spiritual, all these esoteric, hidden knowledge, all this stuff. Nothing is hidden. A lot of this is just marketing. That's all it is. You know, I'm putting it out there right in front of everybody. It's like, this is it. And just take the time to recognize it. It's right there. We're not doing all this funny stuff, etc. We're just putting it out there, and especially because the world is just such in a hurry to destroy itself. It's more than evident, just like Atlantis. That was the same idea. Can't wait to blow everything up. Yeah, and it's just very real. You see it in the movies, see it in the video games, you see it in everything. All self-destruct. The food, the society, whatever, hurry, the business world. This stuff is all nuts. And so what we're doing makes sense. It really does. It's not about chasing ideas. It's learning to recognize what is real. And what is that? Well, that's that part that you got to figure out. But it's right there. Just take the time. But if your personal life's too important, well, then that comes first, doesn't it? So this is where to have the real freedom, just like all these things refer to in their own particular way, you must take the time to recognize and stand real with this reality. And who will do that? Because they're so afraid that, oh my gosh, I won't have a life anymore. I won't have a personal life. No, you'll have a real life. And all of a sudden you'll see that personal life is just very minuscule, and it's not what it appears to be while you're lodged in it one-dimensionally. But again, that's a choice. And I cannot give you the experience or explain it. None of the boys can either. All they can do is just give you the hints. So yes, here we have all these things spread out through history, and especially today, you have huge distortion because the world controllers have taken these things over, and little by little they change them, they distort them. Just like in, when I was young, went to school, when we went to school, Peter, the textbook said things a certain way. But today, you've got geoengineering implemented into all of them. This infected idea that this is a better thing than the natural environment. You see, a step at a time, the controllers take over and they infect it to control others for lifetimes upon lifetimes upon lifetimes. And this is where, just like Sauron in The Lord of the Rings, created all those strange body types to attack Helm's Deep, etc., and the king and whatever, created all these things. These are the generations to come because of the distortion and the GMO food and the chemtrails and the nano dust, the smart dust, all this nonsense, and the vaccines, etc. So what is being presented here is very real, very sincere, and anyone can see it on the real side, and those that do, they see it. You need that objective view. You need that real side view. And sometimes it's a struggle to get to it. But again, it's not even you have to see that. I don't have to go to the real side. I don't have to, because it's all an isness. I don't have to have experiences of anything because I see it. It's invisible. And through all those experiences, even if you have the experiences, if you don't see it, then you don't see it. But that's really what it is. Yeah. So it's like the love that you have for somebody, and now you stand in it. But guess what? It's invisible. It has nothing to do with their body. When you love something or someone, it's nothing to do with them personally. You're experiencing what you already is, you see? And so in this area here, you're simply, because it's all the pieces spread out, but everything, this is where the old saying, all life is one. But that's a huge recognition. So yes, again, Peter, you're experiencing what was for those times, and just like I went through the corporation and others, like as I'm relating to like Claudia here and Sandy and others that have been there for a long time, we needed that too, to see what doesn't work, what isn't real. You need to go through that too. You need to see all sides of it. And so the new presentation, I've streamlined it so that it's right here. It's like the big vitamin pill. It's a little bit toughy to swallow, but you just take your time a little bit. You just take a little bit of it at a time, and pretty soon, all of a sudden, you start to see something else. But it's always up to you to decide to stand real, stand in it and real, and support those that support you. That's the big deal. Or is it all about you? Is it just about you? Well, then it will just be about you, and that'll be it, because the isness life is. That's why I call it the all is. It's about all. It's about everything, absolutely, and beyond that, endlessly all. You see, that's what's so cool about it. And you're no longer restricted to what that personal self wants. And so in the meantime, you go through the process, you have these things, you go back and forth, but eventually, do you see that you can surpass all of it? All of it, and be all with all, you see? Not an idea, but a true reality. And as you decide that, because this is what it is now, right here now, that the voice will guide you. Yeah, this is what's so cool about it. And it's showing up. People are having the experiences, you know. And so again, most of the world is chasing their ideas, and then they find something. It's like, oh, I found this, and I just feel really good, and everybody loves everybody. Yeah, well, just like the corporation, you go there, and just like Sandy saw, everybody's got a reptilian on them. Yes, because they're captured by their personal love idea, and so the reptilians move right in and suck them dry. Yes, because it's all about them. They just don't see what they're doing. They want their one-dimensional life to be fine. Well, you got it, and that's where the reptilians are, and they tapline those people because they don't want the real light. They don't want the real guidance. They just want what they want for their personal self, etc. They want to worship the gods. They want to be secondary, etc. Oh, fine. Say it's choice. Nobody's making them do it. So, yes, and so the opera, Wagner's opera, and many other things like that shows the struggle of the individual going through all these ideas because the individual is looking, for something, but you don't have to. It's no longer looking. It's no longer being the seeker. Okay, that was Paul's idea too, because he started off there. It's not about being the seeker. It's about recognizing the isness life is. Yeah, here, now. And it always has been. But now the opportunity is that now you have the knowledge, the real knowledge that specifies that, and not just ideas that sound good that keep people passive. That becomes the difference. Yes. And so this is where the individual needs to have the courage, because the risk taker, to step up and prove themselves and do something real. Just like the old days of the Knights of the Round Table. Couldn't become a knight unless you did great deeds. You see? Step up and do something real. Or is it just you, about you and what you want? You see? And look at the earth now. Will you do something for everyone here? Will you do something that no one else will do? I was with an individual during this life, and he passed about a year or so ago, and we see him on the real side. And he was with the richest family in the world. And he had been through the corporation and been with an Ava and I for over 4 years. And he came here to help fund this project. But his personal life was more important. So when he passed over the real side, he's in the twilight zone. He thought he was going to the 7th level because of who he was and his notoriety with his family and all that. But he won't step up and help. It's all about him and what he wants. And he's so confused and lost. It's really sad. But he made the choice. See, so again, who will step up and really figure out how to do it for everyone? Okay? Everything and everyone, and get past that personal self. Because again, most people's personal lives are just too important to them. And they'll just go through another life and it'll be the same. Oh yeah, he knew about this. He would come to the Skypes and, he would share the new you. But realistically, he clung to his personal self and it was all about him. And so that's where he ended up. I saw him the night before I left. Rebazar took him away and he went to the twilight zone. I have witnesses to that too. We deal with him once in a while. And it's really kind of sad, and he won't decide. He's still on the real side. He still has that attitude. This is what I'm saying. You go through all these lifetimes, and each lifetime is a wisp. And to see more than that personal self, and then to step up and demonstrate that realistically. Who will do that? Most people are afraid. They won't do this. They won't present this to the world because they're very afraid. Or they chase the knowledge. They like to collect the knowledge, etc. And then they, then they go off somewhere and then they just become tap line again. I've seen people come back and forth. I've seen them from the corporation come here and they go back to the corporation because they just wanted to coddle their personal self. So, Wagner's operas are something fun to study. And once you start to recognize the parts and the pieces, it's like the Lord of the Ring. You see Gollum in there with, his, once he got an aspect of the power, the rings represent power. And once they got that, see, so that's Harry and Joni. They want the power. That's why they're all infected by the reptilians. He's not concerned. He never saw the and Joni, she just wants possession as an example. And this is through many of these things. And they can be good people, but they still want the power, the possession, the control. They want to be the master, the know-it-all, etc. And that's why all these other paths are created. When I was with Paul in the 70s, John Roger Hinkins is one, started Messiah. And Paul talked about him, He said it's all about the money. And that's what it was. So he used the love idea to bait people in with. It's always the love idea, isn't it? And you see all the gurus and the rishis and whatever sitting cross-legs with their hands together, and it's so cute, and they're so humble and whatever. And they speak of their gods, and really what they're doing is they're just tap-lining you to control you because it just keeps you physical, astral. And so, yeah, it's a big struggle here for lifetimes. We've all come through many, many, and the decision is always ours. Will we take the risk to see more? And as you do, you will, but you won't know until you take the risk, till you step up and prove yourself. So it's a whole heck of a lot, isn't it, Peter? Yes, thank you for bringing that about. But I suggest go on Amazon, The Esoteric Music of Richard Wagner, Helene Colleen. It's a fun book to read, yeah.
Right, okay, well, thank you very much indeed for that.